There's a lot to think about when setting up your camera to shoot video, with white balance being both a simple yet critical factor in getting the look that you desired. Here is the way that I set up white balance on my cameras. Hi, I'm Grant and I wanted to make this short video on setting up the white balance on your cameras, which can be simple yet a confusing part of your shooting video workflow. So what is white balance? Basically, white balance is a term to describe color balance, or basically the setting on that you can use in your camera to give it a reference to what is true white under different lighting conditions. Sounds a little bit long-winded and confusing, but essentially it means, well, you're telling your camera what is white, or what is the reference for white under these lighting conditions. White light is basically a combination of all the other colors. So the more accurate your white balance reference is, the more accurate it will represent all the other colors in the light spectrum. In a nutshell, if your white balance is off, then all your other colors will be slightly off as well. The most common unit or terminology used to measure white balance is the Kelvin temperature scale, or often you'll hear it referred to as the color temperature or degrees Kelvin, and that is the measurement used to measure white balance. Here's some examples shot outside on a sunny day, so you can see the different effects that the different color temperatures have on this white reference. I've also thrown in a custom white balance there, which theoretically gives me the most accurate white balance in the scene. And here's another example shot inside with mixed light. Predominantly I have daylight coming in through the windows, but I also have some LED lights in the ceiling here, which will give things a slightly different cast. This can all be a little bit confusing at first, but essentially I've gone from my early days of shooting video where I would religiously set a custom white balance for every different scene that I was shooting. But nowadays, especially when I'm shooting real estate video, and I am shooting this 99% of the time under daylight sunny conditions, so I will often set my camera to 5600 or between 5600 degrees Kelvin and 5800 degrees Kelvin, and I will set it and forget it. And that frees up my mind to concentrate on other more important things such as my exposure and shot composition when shooting. Often when I turn up to shoot a job, and it's just about invariably during daylight or bright, hopefully clear and sunny days, I will often set my camera at 5600 degrees Kelvin and I will shoot all day on that and not touch it. The only time I come off this setting is if, for example, if I'm shooting a indoor scene or a real estate video and I am in a dimly lit room such as a bathroom or a toilet which doesn't have much natural daylight, so therefore it's predominantly lit by perhaps tungsten bulbs, I will often lower my white balance to something like 4700K or maybe even down to 3200K to get the white back to the reference white again. Otherwise the scene will look, as I'm sure a lot of you have seen, will look too yellow. So that's the only time I'll come off my daylight setting of 5600 or 5800K. Conversely, if I'm shooting at night, or if I have a shoot at night and it's invariably under tungsten or artificial light, I will set my camera at 3200Ks or use the little tungsten bulb icon on your white balance settings and set it and forget it once again. Also, if you're unsure or if you're in a scene that has a lot of mixed lighting sources, i.e. maybe a bright window on one side and maybe a lot of tungsten lights on the other, learn how to use the custom white balance setting on your camera. For example, I'm shooting this here in my office and I've got a LED light up here and that's my primary light source, and I've actually dialed in a custom setting of about, I think from memory, 5300 degrees Kelvin, because this light tends to run a little cool, so I have lowered the setting on there. Apart from setting and forgetting your white balance when shooting, the other big advantage of using manual white balance is when it comes to editing. Essentially, if you're running your camera in auto, it'll probably have a slightly different white balance for every scene you shoot, and this can make or give you a bit of a headache when editing. However, because I am setting and forgetting or setting and locking my white balance, when I'm editing, it's very easy to match the color in all my shots because I have the same white balance going. If I have different white balance, this can sometimes become a bit of a headache when editing, trying to match the shots up. Another advantage is when I am editing, I might perhaps want to warm up all my shots. Maybe my shots were a little bit on the cool side, so therefore I just need to warm up one shot, maybe raise the temperature a little bit when I'm editing, and then I can just cut and paste it to all my other shots and they will all be the same again. With all that being said, auto white balance is surprisingly good on these cameras these days. Not like the old days where you'd often get a blue shot or a very yellow shot. And I will sometimes use auto white balance if I'm doing a run and gun style shoot, or perhaps I'm using my GoPro to shoot some mountain biking. I will trust and use auto white balance in those situations. Experiment with the different white balance settings, but my recommendation is get used to using and shooting with manual white balances, and it becomes another great tool in your video toolkit. If you'd like to know my custom settings on how I set up my cameras, including my drones for shooting real estate video, follow the link in the description. There's a downloadable PDF there where you can have a look and see exactly what I use. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.